Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money.
MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs.
And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store.
So I need to switch up to some like here. Truly is a tale as old as time. Whatever gets to the ripcord.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 47 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
I'm hoping this cures my headache a little bit.
A head like that ought to hurt.
What's going on, man?
Not much. I was rummaging through some stuff in the garage. I have a couple items to go over, and looking at my bikes and just getting more excited that the weather will break soon and be back out riding.
Yeah, I think we're almost at the end of the winter depression season because it seems like the days are getting a little bit longer. It's getting darker later. I'm getting kind of excited.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if the groundhog was entirely truthful. It feels like definitely wasn't early spring as of yet, but
I got more faith in the groundhog than I do our own weather people anymore. It seems like I remember growing up as a kid, it was like you sit there and watch the weather and they'd say, hey, Monday it's going to rain, Tuesday it's not, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday it's going to be nice outside.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Now it's like it's a free-for-all. You might as well just get your weather from the groundhogs.
Yeah, it's one thing for them to say like, oh yeah, it's a 30% chance of rain, and then it switches to like 60 the day of. It's something else entirely for them to be like, yeah, it's going to be perfect, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it thunderstorms all day. There's been several times that I've sat and watched it rain while camping on national forest, cursing my local weatherman. So.
Well, a couple of administrative things to get out of the way first. Number one, we kind of shared this our podcast over to the guys on Adventure Rider. So if you're watching that from there, thanks for tuning in tonight. Hopefully you guys like what we do. Secondly, we're looking for somebody to help add another segment to our show. So with the local hare scramble series getting ready to ramp up, Mountain State Hare Scrambles, New East Coast, and GNCC, which just had their first event this past weekend. If you're somebody that's out there running those events and would like to kind of collaborate with us and do like a minute-long recap of the finishes, what the track was like, we'd like to add that to the program too. And last but certainly not least, always looking for more sponsors. If you guys want to contribute to help upgrade the podcast, make it a little bit better, we got a deal right now. It's $10 for the year. We'll share your business on here. I know some of the guys have already done 2 years, and that's our little plug. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, man, episode 47, we're going to talk about tools that you need in the garage setups, and all kinds of other stuff. It's going to make your life a lot easier when you're working on your bike at whatever facility you're using. I know that we touched in previous episodes about what tools to carry with you on the bike as you're riding. This is going to be a little bit more in depth of stuff that's going to help you out whenever you're trying to do maintenance on the bike, like back at the house. So, Trevor, I'm going to turn this over to you. I know we're going to kind of work from back to front on the bike.
Sure.
And we'll start with that and then kind of talk about stuff to have in the garage that's going to help as well.
Sure. Well, I'll say first and foremost, having a way to get your bike up off the ground is a big deal. You know, most of the common maintenance items outside of oil changes are changing tires and like chain maintenance, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for a period of time, I used a milk crate with some blocks of wood stacked up on it. I used like a hydraulic lift stand for a while. A couple of years ago for Christmas, my dad got me with a Tusk like lever arm lift stand, and that thing has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that. At the time, it was like $90. So it's on the cheaper end, but just being able to slide that thing under your bike and push your foot down and get it up off the ground and have it stable is, indispensable in the shop.
Yeah, it also kind of gives you a different viewpoint too. You can kind of see underneath the bike a little bit easier. And yeah, just being able to get the thing up in the air and get the weight off of it. I mean, that's going to reveal a lot. You know, you may find that linkage bearings are wore out, shock bearings are wore out, and get the weight up off the bike. It's a lot easier to see that stuff and just work on it in general.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not getting any younger, so hunching over and working on stuff isn't really appealing to me anymore.
Yeah, that's always been my approach. If I'm going to have to do something for some period of time, I want to be comfortable doing it, because otherwise it's just going to be even more frustrating.
Yep, that's a very good point.
So we got it up off the ground. That's cool. That's step one. Also, at one point in time, I had 2 ratchet straps that ran to the handlebars that lifted up that way. It works. It's sketchy. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you know, you'd be surprised at what you'll find, ways that you'll figure out to get done what you need to get done. So necessity is a mother of invention.
It truly is. And something else we'll touch on later is like, maybe you don't have all the space or a dedicated garage. You do have to get creative sometimes in what you do to better yourself and be able to work on the bike. So yeah, we got some pictures that we'll go through here later, some that people submitted, so we appreciate that.
So
go ahead.
We'll start from the front. We'll just go ahead and get into tire changing. That's probably the single most common thing I do on a bike, and I struggled for some time with like the cheapy eBay tire irons and stuff like that, and I didn't know how much I was suffering until I spent literally like $30, $25. Rocky Mountain ATV&C sells a set of 2 of these wide tire spoons and one of these curved, is it like Rabconda sells a very similar one, tire irons. Absolute night and day difference in changing tires. More leverage. I know Fred has the one that's like 2 feet long with like the nice big aluminum handle. That works really good too. But for no more than it costs, I think everybody should have just a decent set of tire levers at a minimum.
It's good to have the cheapy ones maybe out on the trail with you. It doesn't take up as much room. It's not as long, it's okay. But having those long bent ones that have all that leverage, it's a huge help. I know when I went and helped Fred put the bibs in his KTM there, we had to use that big long one and all the other ones that he had. So the more leverage you got, and you can never have too many of those things.
No. One caveat I will throw out there, and this goes for pretty much anything you're doing on a bike that's like falls in the realm of normal maintenance. For instance, for your tire levers, at least use the shorty levers that you plan to carry at least once. So you can find out how much they suck, because they are going to be terrible compared to anything else. But just to at least familiarize yourself with using them. Same goes with, if you're going to have one of those little short combination tire lever axle nut wrenches. Don't tighten your axle nuts with a breaker bar. It seems common sense, right? But I'm in the habit of whatever I plan on removing, like a bolt with, I try to install it similarly.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get the leverage or whatever to get an axle nut off, it's a real headache.
Yep.
So that's kind of something I try to do. Most common stuff like chain adjustments, just use your trail tools to do it at least once, so you know the ins and outs. And other than that,
one thing that I would add to doing your tire changes and stuff is a stand of some kind, being able to get it up off the ground.
Yes.
Another deal, just like working on the bike with a lift stand, being able to stand up and work on your bike.
Yep.
It's going to help your back out, help your knees. You're not hunched over trying to get leverage, sitting down on stuff. And I've got a very quick, poor man, a way of doing this. And I'm going to turn the camera around so you guys can see this, because let's face it, I'm a married man. I got 3 kids, lots of responsibilities. I don't have a whole lot of money to be spending on a lot of this stuff, but I was able to scratch and borrow and beg and steal this kind of setup. I'm going to turn the camera over so you guys can see this real quick. So what I've got is a used 55-gallon drum, and that is a Harbor Freight tire changer. And I'm able to put the motorcycle rim and tire down on that thing. It's got a bead breaker on it. And not only does that stand also work as, obviously a tire changing stand, that's also my waste oil dispenser. So I'm kind of knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone there. And I think if you're in a situation like me where garage space is precious, anything that you can utilize for 2 or 3 different uses is definitely going to help you out.
Yeah, I agree on making your gear pull double duty wherever possible. For sure.
I've got, I don't know, a couple gallons of oil, and anytime I do oil changes or whatever I'm doing, I just dump that stuff in there. And I got a friend of mine that has a waste oil furnace. He burns that stuff. So it's beneficial for everybody. And then once you got the weight down in the bottom of that barrel, it's going to weigh it down enough where it's not going to be moving around. The only other thing I'd like to do to that is put it on some kind of platform with maybe some caster wheels. That way I can move it around a little bit easier. But
so at some point I'm interested in doing something similar to that, but on like a little mobile workbench that's got kind of the laminate top or whatever. Yeah. And, having most of my basic tire change tools, chain maintenance tools, stuff like that. So just wheel that thing over the bike and away you go. But man, I would really benefit from a tire changing stand at some point. The way that I've done it typically is once I got smart enough to quit doing it on the ground, I've got a spare set of wheels for my pickup truck, and I'll just stack 3 of those guys up, and it gets it about the right height, and it doesn't hold it in place, but it's a lot better than chasing that thing around on a dirty old towel or a piece of cardboard or something on the floor. So
yeah, and I've seen guys take their axles and chuck it up in a vise too.
Yep.
And I mean, that works sometimes, but it always seems like it's falling left or right as you're trying to work on it. You can never get it tight enough. And then you take a risk of damaging the axle doing that too.
Yep. That's what I thought too. That's a heck of a risk to take. So on the topic of changing tires, so we talked about like the really basic tire irons and stuff like that, which you can absolutely get the job done with. Mm-hmm. We moved kind of to nice to have stuff. So like a tire changing stand or station. So this is something that I've put a lot of use on in the time that I've got it. And I plug it on here anytime I can. So Tyler Vincent, this one's for you. It's a no pinch tire tool, and it doesn't aid whatsoever with removal, but man, for installation, it is. Yeah. It's just amazing. I'm confident enough in my ability to use tire levers that I don't feel compelled to like stay, trained up or whatever on it. I've done it enough that it's muscle memory. So any time that I can make things a little bit easier, I'm a big fan of that. That came from my fiance as a birthday gift. That falls under I wanted it, but I'd never pay the amount of money for it.
Right.
The thing.
Right. Yeah, so we'll definitely touch on a lot of stuff like that in the show. But and that tool comes with different like cones that go into different sizes.
Yeah, so you can order different ones of these. He also makes sleeves and stuff like that. So this is sized for, I think, most enduro Euro style bikes.
Right.
I think it's even small enough diameter to fit my Kawasaki, if I remember right. I put those Kenda 50/50 tires on it. I use this, and I really don't have any complaints aside from the price. It's just pretty expensive investment, but I don't have to worry about pinching tubes. It cut tire installation in half, if not more.
Yeah.
So big fan of it.
Yeah, that like you said, you're stepping up in price as you go along with that stuff, and that's really nice. I want to get one myself, but probably the Mac Daddy top of the line when it comes to tire changing has to be the Rabiconda.
Yes.
And I mean, that thing it's really, really cool, but in my opinion, it's too overpriced for what it is.
Yeah.
Now, I would say if you're a guy like Mini Bikes on Instagram, Kyle Bradshaw, or the guys that are constantly changing tires just to change tires, or maybe you own a small shop and you're doing that a whole lot, it would probably pay for itself in the long run. But for us hobby guys, we go through maybe 4 or 5 sets of tires a year. Like, I don't see it paying off in the long run. But you see guys work those things. They are insane how well they do, especially like for putting bibs in.
I agree.
You see like the ISTE teams, they all have that when they have to change their own tires or change their own bibs out.
If I ran bibs, I would insist on one. Like I said, now that I've used a Baja no pinch for a while, to me, it's worth it. If you're going to be in the hobby for a significant amount of time, like most people, you're probably not flush with spare time by the time you get done with work and everything else you got going on.
Yeah.
I don't feel like fighting, getting a tire on, and even worse is accidentally pinching it on that last bite, pinching the tube, and having to deal with doing it all over again. So, 100, how much was this thing?
120-ish.
120-ish.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Something too, I used to be the guy, it's like with Jeeps and stuff, it's like, I'll work on it and on gravel outside, like I don't care kind of thing. But as I've gotten older, it's more like, well, if I can spend a little bit of money and save some frustration and enjoy doing something more, I try to trend towards that. That's not to say you can't do without basic tools, but if you're going to do something often, those little quality of life improvements can really make things better.
Yeah, I was it like 4 or 5 years ago, I put a lift kit and swapped the axles out on a Suzuki Samurai.
Yeah. Out
in the middle of the yard in the dirt, and it was raining. It was awful, and I swore I would never do it again. So, just having a level concrete floor to work on stuff is definitely a godsend. I am a fan of the Baja no pinch. I'd like to get one myself, but what I got's working for now. So
sure,
if I ever need one of those, I'll just come see you. And that's the other thing, make sure you're buddies with people that maybe have these items that you can borrow. That goes a long way too.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot of times I've borrowed stuff from like Fred, Tom, you. That's especially part of the fun of being in a club is having access to stuff like that.
Yep. And also, if you're riding similar bikes, maybe one guy can get a set of fork seal drivers, and then the other guy has the air gap tool. One guy can buy one part that goes through, for the whole job.
Yep.
And, you don't have to have one guy just buy everything off the bat. You can kind of spread the load a little bit. And,
I agree.
Well, it does pay to ride with, similar minded guys that maybe have the same kind of bike.
Yeah, that was going to be my next topic was fork seal tools.
Yeah.
That's another common job that a lot of people think is way more difficult than it is. If you can read a book or read a recipe to bake a cake, you can change a set of fork seals. I mean, it's really just following directions.
Yeah.
Having the seal bullet even the cheapy plastic ones. In the past, I've also used a couple layers of saran wrap over the fork leg and done it that way. I bought a variable fork diameter fork seal driver from Tusk. It was like $30. Got the 2-piece clamshell mallet or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
works fine. I've installed plenty of fork seals with it. The fork oil level gauge, I think Tusk has one for cheap.
So let me get my toolbox here real quick, and I'll grab that, because this takes out all of the guesswork of how much oil am I supposed to add to the forks. And that is a huge part of how well your front forks works too. Is what's your air gap, what's your fluid level. I mean, that can make as big of a difference as just having a set of springs that are for your weight. So, and
you might be running, you might get a hold of a bike second or third owner, and the forks have been gone through and had some work done to them. You're no longer running a factory air gap. Being able to measure, okay, say it's X millimeters from the top of the fork to the fluid level. As long as you haven't had a significant amount leak out, you have a general idea of what you need to put back in. In the past, I've never done it by fluid ounces or cubic centimeters or anything. I've always set it based on that height. Because unless you're doing a complete tear down where you hose off every single piece of the fork internals with solvent, you're never going to get all the fluid out. There's always going to be a couple ounces left in it. And, having that gauge is just the easiest way to get it right.
So this thing is super simple the way it's set up. Basically, you have a syringe with a little piece of plastic tubing going to a aluminum tube. And this tube, it's going to be really hard to see on camera. You're probably not going to be able to see it and pick it up, but it actually has the level indicators of what you want that air gap to be in the top of your forks. So you have this little ring here, and it's got a twist knob. Loosen that up, and then you can slide this and be able to adjust your air gap. And what this does is it slides down inside the fork after you put the whatever oil you want to put in there. There's all kinds of different weights and whatnot. But this thing, you can set the air gap to what you want. That tube goes down inside there. You pull the syringe, and it just sucks the fluid out. And when you start hearing it gurgling because it's sucking air, you're at the level that you want to be at. This takes away all the guesswork, and it was only like $28 or something.
That's a no-brainer. I think mine came from Motion Pro, and it was similarly priced.
I think that's what this one is. It's a Motion Pro one. Yep, it's a Motion Pro.
Another thing, kind of a hack for that tool I've used in the past is if you ever accidentally overfill your oil, like on a KTM, for instance, mine has a drain plug on the bottom of the motor, but also on the side. I can lean my bike over and pop that drain plug on the side out, and then use that to siphon out, say, a tenth of a liter or something like that, as opposed to having to pop the bottom drain bolt and then get your hands soaked in oil trying to get the excess out. It's always worked really well.
Yeah, and like you were talking about too, there's one of the fork bolts. Whoa. Just slides over and prevents you from cutting the seal on installation. And then on my my 2015 500 EXC, it actually takes a special socket to get the cap off. It has little pins on it. So Motion Pro is definitely my go-to when it comes to any of these like specialty parts for motorcycles. They're priced well, and if it's something that you're going to do a whole lot, it's worth it in my opinion. There's that little pin socket there. I think this thing was like $15 or something.
Yeah, as opposed to the stuff I've seen on the forums of guys using like rigid pipe wrenches and stuff and absolutely just mangling.
Oh yeah,
like it's not worth the $15 you're trying to save, man.
No, and it's if you got a bike that you like and you're going to keep around for a long time, it's you can spend $200 and under for a whole gamut of tools that's specific for that bike to take care of any kind of these maintenance issues you've got. And then it's also nice if you go to sell that bike, you include those tools with the purchase, so the next guy can work on that stuff as well. So.
Or if there's a guy in your riding club, say you're swapping bikes to something that those tools won't be useful for anymore. There's probably somebody in your riding club that'd love to have the opportunity to get those off of you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you talked about the special tool for your forks. That was another thing I wanted to bring up is a shop manual.
Oh, yeah. I gotta have
I'm
it.
not going to tell you to pay full price for an OEM shop manual, and I'm also not going to tell you to do literally 30 seconds of Googling and download a free PDF of a scan of the OEM shop manual. But that is one of the absolute best tools that you could possibly have. If you can follow directions, you can do almost anything, up to and including engine work. If you can read the shop manual, take basic measurements, stuff like that.
One thing that the shop manuals have in them that I don't think a lot of people pay attention to is torque specs for things. And
What?
what's that? 4 Ugga right? That's the right.
You just tighten it until you feel it get loose again, then back it off a quarter turn, and it'll be the next owner's problem.
Yeah, and one tool that I highly recommend is super cheap, torque wrench.
Yes,
the 3/8 drive torque wrench. This does inch pounds, which is what most of the stuff on a motorcycle is measured in.
Do not confuse inch pounds and pound feet. I've seen it done. You will find out what a helicoil or a time cert is, and you will be in a state of misery.
Yeah, it's miserable. But yeah, this is 3/8 drive. I picked it up at Harbor Freight. I think it was coupon on sale, $15. I've used the heck out of this thing. It's fine.
Yep, I got a 3/8 and a quarter drive torque wrench. The quarter drive, of course, gets used, all over the bike.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of tests out there done by multiple different reviewers on YouTube regarding, the Harbor Freight torque wrenches are accurate enough.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had an issue out of mine. Something else too regarding how light the torque on some of these fasteners is keep your 3/8 stuff as far away as you possibly can from your engine case bolts and your fork clamp bolts. Get a quarter drive little stubby ratchet that you can't put too much torque on, or if you're really conscious of how much you're trying to put on it. That'll save you a lot of headache. That's always something that I recommend to someone who's just getting started is a stubby quarter drive ratchet and a light touch.
Yep. I saw a meme the other day that really cracked me up. It was a picture of Vin Diesel, and it said, "It doesn't matter if it's cross-threaded or torque to spec. Tight is tight." You
get they call it hillbilly Loctite, just cross-threaded.
Yeah, just cross-threaded, baby.
Yep. So
speaking of cross-threading, one other tool that I would recommend adding to your arsenal, and this is mostly for teardown, and I will say I'm guilty of using it for install as well. Get you a little 3/8 impact driver. This thing makes taking apart, dude. It makes taking apart a bike so freaking easy.
Yep.
You got obviously the little bit drivers, Phillips flathead, what have you, but you also have. I've got them over in the toolbox. I've got the adapters that will go to a little socket. Yep. This little Cobalt on full battery will take out swing arm bolts. It'll do anything that you need it to do. And it just makes your life so much easier.
I've got a little DeWalt driver like that.
Yep.
Love it. It made it feel like cheating. Like take my Kawasaki, for instance, to take the shrouds off that thing. It's probably like 12 bolts. It's a nightmare. It sucks. Using a ratchet or something like that felt like it took eternity. That you're done in under a minute, ready to go. Another tool that I like to plug is just a basic 1/4-inch T-handle.
Oh yeah.
I get some ridiculous mileage out of just a regular quarter drive T-handle.
Oh yeah, if you can get one in an 8mm, a 10mm, a 12, and a 14, that kind of covers most stuff on a bike. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of T-handles. Love those things.
I've got one from Motion Pro that just has the quarter drive chuck on the long end and one of the short ends of the T.
Yeah.
So you can. I'll just put a couple sockets in my shirt pocket when I go over to sit by the bike, and 8, 10, 12, and a 14 is pretty much the entirety, save for the axle bolts and maybe the swing arm bolt of most bikes. So
speaking of axle bolts, these are super cheap too, and I believe another Motion Pro plug. We need to get sponsored by Motion Pro. Double-ended axle wrench.
Yep.
This thing will fit the rear, it'll fit the front, and this one's actually cut for different sizes on each side. So if you have a buddy's bike that has a slightly different axle size, this thing right here is going to cover 99% of all bikes out there that you ride with. So, and the way it's bent too, it gives you a little bit more leverage whenever you're taking the axle nuts off. This always stays in my my gear bag when I'm riding, but I always pull this thing out whenever I'm in the shop and getting ready to take the axle nut off too, because you can get it done with a crescent wrench, but eventually you're going to start mangling the nut and everything on that. So I think this was $8. It was super, super cheap. Motion Pro. Highly recommend this double-ended axle wrench.
Yeah, there's a ton of little quality of life improvements like that are not that expensive. And you'll sit and wonder, why did I spend so much time, being frustrated and struggling without it?
Yeah.
So moving back from the forks, I guess we'll talk about engine work. If you run one for long enough, you are either going to have to check and adjust the valves yourself or pay somebody and hope they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So my approach has been to buy a complete shim kit. So you have everything, and there's only a set, number of shim diameters that have been used. And you'd be surprised at what one kit will serve. So I bought a kit for my KTM 350. It also fits the 500s all the way back to James's era and probably before.
Yeah, I can see it staring at me. It's sitting on the workbench.
I need to get that back at some point, but that and just a set of calipers, some feeler gauges. Feeler gauges,
That's
impossibly cheap, man. Just dirt cheap. And of course, we talked about the torque wrench. Absolutely use a torque wrench if you're ever doing any amount of engine work. But it's really not that bad of a job. You just do a little basic math and go through your steps. If you can find a shop manual, it'll walk you through exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
But you save
a lot of money doing it yourself.
Huge amount of money doing it on your own. And if you're going to own one for a while, you're going to be doing it often enough that you should probably plan on figuring out how to do it on your own.
Yeah. What would you suggest as far as like a just run-of-the-mill basic tool set? Like what should you have in your arsenal?
As in like an off-the-shelf tool set, or just a basic?
Just like maybe it don't have to be off the shelf, but maybe specific things that you would like to like say you're newbie guy starting out, you want to start working on your own stuff. You got a small little closet or something to work in, so you can't have like a giant toolbox, but maybe you have like a little kit to get you by. So
I would get, of course, since I've got a KTM, got to have some Torx, some basic Torx bits. I would have probably a 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and maybe a couple other sizes of sockets. Probably just quarter drive. You could get by with a ratchet, T-handle, of course, your extensions. I would have wrenches that correspond to those sizes as well. Some screwdriver bits, stuff like that. You really don't see many screwdriver headed bolts being used on stuff.
Yeah.
If you're working on older Japanese stuff, buy a Japanese industrial standard screwdriver. I have a 1972 Trail 90, so mine sees a lot of use.
Yeah, JIS screws are not the same as Phillips.
Yeah. I don't care. You see guys like, oh, that's the same as a Phillips number or whatever. It's not. They were designed. Phillips was specifically designed to cam out before the bolt strip to make it easier to assemble stuff on an assembly line with low skilled workers.
Yep.
So it is built to cam out. Speaking of camming out of like Phillips bolts and stuff like that, a little bit of valve grinding compound put down in the crux of that Phillips head, you would be very surprised at what you can get to walk out that is otherwise, it looks too chewed up to be functional. So I've used that trick in the past.
I've got one of those impact screwdrivers too. If I find some of those fasteners that are, Phillips or flathead that are super stuck, which, like you said, you don't really see that a whole lot on these newer bikes. But man, that thing is super nice to be able to get in there and just give it a real quick tap with a hammer. It breaks it loose every single time.
Yep. I'd have a pair of vice grips.
Yeah.
That's a given. I would get a nice, and when I say nice, I mean like not the one that's $3 at Harbor Freight crescent wrench. I got one from Walmart from Hart. It's got like nice ground parallel jaws. I get a lot of use out of that.
I actually have, so for those of you who don't know, I'm a union millwright here in Fairmont plant. I actually have one of those Hart crescent wrenches in like a 4, a 6, and a 12 or something size, and I use it like almost every day. The thing's fantastic. It's a Walmart brand.
Yeah, I've got one of the stubby Hart crescent wrenches in my trail bag. That's what I use for axle nuts and all that other stuff because the jaws are so parallel and everything. Like I said, I'd have needle nose pliers. I don't know. It's hard to sit here and think about like all this stuff I typically use.
Yeah, one thing that I would say too, that it's something that's definitely going to evolve the more you get involved with working on the bike. You know, you could start out. I know Harbor Freight, Walmart, Craftsman, they have a multitude of just like a little soft tote bag that's completely full of, you know, all your general sockets, a hammer, crescent wrench. It'll get you started. But the more that you work on this stuff, the more that you're going to find like some of that stuff's okay, but you want to upgrade it as you go. And that's the great thing about all these tools is you can do that. And I've definitely been that way too. Started out with the cheap stuff, and you start noticing that, you know, hey, this vise is a little bit nicer than the other one that I had. It's a little smoother, and just makes your life a lot more easier to work on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Whatever your budget, you can find something to suit that can get the job done. For a lot of stuff, you'd be surprised at how far along you can get with a factory toolkit.
Yep.
You know, is it going to absolutely suck taking a bolt out, you know, 1/3 of a turn at a time with a little wrench from the factory toolkit? You bet. Is it doable? Yeah. I think it's like it is with gear. People get so hung up on buying like expensive tools. Don't get me wrong. It's nice having nice expensive stuff, right? But don't let it get in the way of actually getting stuff done.
Yep.
You know, I don't want somebody out there to sit and miss out because they feel, well, I can't do this if I don't have a tire changing stand. You'll find a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be that guy that's sitting around for 2 weeks waiting on parts because or tools because you have to have that tool. And it really behooves you to learn and struggle using the crappy stuff because there's probably going to be situations out on the trail where that's all you have to work with. And once you figure out how to do it, you know, the caveman way, you start to get this nicer stuff. It makes your quality of life a lot better.
That's the path that I've been on, you know. Same way with if you got a woodshed, you got somewhere to work on a bike.
Yeah.
You know, don't wait too long before you get into it, or it might never happen.
That's very true.
So that's some of the basic tools, some engine work. Air filter stuff's pretty self-explanatory. Everybody makes a kit. Almost every gas station sells kerosene. It's pretty basic. There's an impossibly large number of YouTube videos on how to do it.
And use that too. Use YouTube to your advantage, man. There are so many videos out there of walking you through the steps, telling you what tools you need to use. I know Rocky Mountain's really good about putting out stuff on how to work on different stuff. And what was the other guy? Was it Highland Cycles?
Yeah. Shout out to Morgan with Highland Cycles has some good content about some bikes that a lot of people haven't really put out content on, like older KTMs and stuff like that. That's
what I was going to say. I went through his video step by step to do the fork seals on my 2015 KTM. Fantastic. Yeah. So that's an easy tool that everybody has access to is watching some videos of people have working on it before you.
That's like
one thing I would plug really quickly too to add to your arsenal, and it's not that much, slide hammer. This thing is super nice for taking wheel bearings out of wheels that refuse to come out. It's got a little different size expandable tips that will go in, kind of like a blind bearing puller. knock it out, man. That thing was $20. Super
Yep.
cheap.
I've been telling myself I was going to buy one of those, and the collets and everything for wheel bearings.
Yep.
And man, that 16-inch long 3/8 extension and a 3-pound hammer just keeps looking looking too good every time.
This one here, I've used the crap out of. That kind of fits both the wheel bearings on my KTM. So,
yeah.
If any of you are running the Tusk Impact wheels like I am, you know how quickly we go through wheel bearings.
Huh.
So yeah, I think that gives a good general idea of probably tools and just basic stuff to have on your bike. But I'd like to go back to what you were talking about before. Improving your quality of life when you're actually in your area working on the bike. And not all of us are as fortunate as some to have a dedicated workshop or a big garage. I know. When I first started out riding and working, I was living in an apartment in Morgantown, and I literally had to bring the thing into the kitchen on the linoleum floor and spread out cardboard just to have a nice, warm, dry place to work on stuff. But, there are some things you can do, even if you're in that situation, to improve the quality of your work and the timeliness of your work. I would say the number one thing, in my opinion, to help with that is lighting. I hate working on stuff in the dark, dude, where you cannot see.
There are a few things more frustrating than trying to work on something and not being able to see.
Yeah, that's so frustrating.
At some point, I will have a well set up workshop, and one of the first things I want to make sure of before I start picking out any shelving, workbenches, vices, anything, is figuring out the lighting situation.
Right.
A good workaround is just a good headlamp.
Yeah.
You can get these for pretty cheap that work really well. I got this as a gift several years ago. It's a Petzl Actic Core, ridiculously bright, long lasting battery. It's relatively comfortable. I use it all the time. You can ask Shiloh. I look like a freaking coal miner every time I'm working on something, because no matter how well the lighting in a shop is set up, you will always end up in some weird position where you're like blocking the light you need to see. It really just makes all the difference. I've seen the ones that, sit under like a ball cap. They've got the ones now that like go around your neck and point forward. There's a lot of options out there.
And don't be the guy that, I know some of these cell phone lights are bright, but don't be the guy sitting there trying to hold your cell phone and work on stuff at the same time. You want something that's off to the side or hooked onto you, so you have both of your hands to work.
Yep. Yeah. Something else too is instead of having somebody holding the light, you yell a lot less if you just have it attached to your head.
Trust me, growing up with my dad, I got yelled at for holding the light wrong pretty much all my life, and I did help him work on something there the other day. I can't remember. And he was holding the light for me, and it was so glorious to just be able to give it back to him. All the years of frustration. Can you see? Yeah, I can see. Well, good, because I can't. Turn the light over here, damn it. I love that. You guys see maybe I don't know how well it's picking up in the video or whatever, but I mean, obviously you can see the glare coming off my back wall.
Yep.
So I've got two, I think they're like 4-foot long LED, 110 volt. Obviously, you got to be able to do a little bit of house wiring, but I've got them wired in a series in here together. I've also got LED bulbs in my garage door opener.
Yeah.
So, and they're actually, I think I got them from Busy Beaver, but they're like the ones that fan out, and you can kind of adjust them how you want. If I really need some more light, I'll shine both of those down and just hit the button on the garage door to turn the light on. And then over top of my workbench over here, I've got I think it's another 4-foot like LED kind of strobe light, and it's mounted up above and shining down onto my workbench here. And I don't know how well I can show this. I'll try. My garage is absolutely filthy right now, but you can kind of see my workbench over there.
Yeah.
Got that light shining above. If you can see, I also got a vise, a drill press. There's a welder over there. Just a lot of general basic stuff to make my life a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's all. Like I said, I'll have a nice setup shop at some point, but in the meantime, keep making do. But yeah, lighting is huge. Thank goodness for LEDs now.
Yeah.
You can get dirt cheap LED light fixtures that take up next to no power, that are very reliable.
I think I've got. I think all of these lights actually did come from Busy Beaver. I got less than $50 and everything in my garage here. So yeah, I can't imagine trying to work in a dark cave of a shop, Yeah, and some people have to do that. I would also argue, we were talking about, using your buddies for different tools. If they've got a little bit better of a shop setup, don't be afraid to ask if you can bring your bike over there and work on it as well.
Write that down.
I don't have any, gripes or complaints. I would prefer to do it. You got somebody with a nice shop, go over there, help them with their stuff. They'll help you with your stuff, and you probably get a lot more done as long as you're not like me with some tall boys there while you're trying to do your work. And then,
well, that's why I never bring my bike over to work on it.
I think we just turned into a drunken therapy session, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Something else too that doesn't cost any money, that's a huge improvement to your workspace, is just having a clean work surface.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to do any amount of internal engine work, is having a clean work surface is huge. You don't want like a grime and grit covered table or workbench if you can help it.
Sawdust floor doing bottom end work.
I mean, I've seen it done and I've seen it hold together.
Yeah.
But I sleep better, knowing that, like, when I went to do my oil pump gears and stuff, that it was, it was a pretty clean job.
Yeah. Along with cleanliness, I would also say, organization. There's so much cool stuff out there on the market now that's dirt cheap from Amazon to organize anything you can think of.
Yep.
I've got a giant pegboard on my back wall above my workbench. It's really nice to be able to hang up spare parts, brake pads, tools, what have you. I picked up a 48-inch Cobalt multi-drawer, nice ball bearing toolbox off of Facebook Marketplace for $100. It's more than big enough to carry all my tools in. And multiple shelves. I got a cabinet that's on the wall over there that's got all of my fluids and antifreeze, whatnot in there. And just being organized is such a godsend. You know where stuff's at. I still find myself, though, it's like my garage decides to eat and swallow half the stuff I was just working on and just had in my hand. But
I've spent way too much of my life searching for a wrench that was in my pocket, or a headlamp that was attached to my head, and
that elusive 10 millimeter that you just had, the one that decides to walk away all the time.
I just read a comment. Somebody's talking about the lack of a dedicated work surface. So my workaround for that was, it's like a $50 lifetime brand folding table.
Yeah.
Like 6 by 2.5 feet or whatever. I've done fork seals on it. I did everything for my valve checks and everything on it. And, it's nice having a workbench or something like that, but it's also really nice having something that you can just set up right beside your bike.
Yeah.
And have everything laid out on. So I've gotten a lot of use out of a folding table of all things.
That's a really good point. And along with that, those little magnetic trays, they're dirt cheap to hold your stuff to keep it from falling off the table. Dude, I've went to Goodwill and saw that they have those folding tables like that for dirt cheap. Don't be afraid to go to some thrift shops and scrounge a little bit. Facebook Marketplace is a good place to look for stuff like that. Half my stuff's built off of Facebook Marketplace. Not like we said earlier, not all of us are that fortunate to have a dedicated workspace, but something like a fold-up table, a fold-up chair, just to be able to sit down and be right up on your bike working. It's cheap stuff to help you out and improve your quality of life.
That goes back to kind of my whole mantra with all this is, within our riding group, I've seen just about every kind of shop, from one end of the spectrum to the other. Don't let it get in the way of getting stuff done. I've done a lot of work in without a lot of tools or without a lot of good space to do it, and I just think that's big, just being able to get things done, even though I can definitely say there's a lot of stuff that was absolutely terrible and it sucked, and would have been way easier with better shop, better tools, better space, etc. But it still gets done.
Maybe not as quickly and not as
quickly, but it might take a bigger mental toll than it would otherwise. But
you're still, I think that's more satisfying if you're the guy that has to do that. You're working in a broom closet in your apartment to rebuild the bottom end of your ATM or whatever. At the end of the day, if it works out, it's successful. That's a great learning experience, and it's a great story. Some guy, maybe you're at a ride and he's talking about, I'd take my bike into the shop and they completely rebuild it top to bottom, paid this much money. You're like, wow, I had $300 in this and rebuilt it in my bathtub.
Yep.
I will say, if you are going that route where you happen to work like in an apartment or a small house and you don't really have the space, make sure you have an understanding spouse. You don't want your wife asking why your side cases are in the dishwasher. You want to make sure that you have an understanding significant other.
Yeah. Of course, I've been blessed in that regard.
We
rebuilt the carburetor for the Trail 90 on the kitchen table together. So that was a really fun experience, actually. But I do take some additional satisfaction in being able to do with less what a lot with more couldn't manage.
Mm-hmm.
Just sheerly out of ingenuity and perseverance.
Yeah, you'll be surprised at what you can MacGyver together to get the job done.
I got one more. Well, we can go on this for hours. I got one more big suggestion.
Yeah,
that might be the most important tool in your shop is a good chemical-based fire extinguisher, a dry chemical fire extinguisher. If you're doing any amount of electrical work, any amount of carburetor work, even swapping out the fuel tank on my KTM, next thing I knew, the whole front of my pants and stuff had gasoline on it. It's easy to do. It only takes, one time to mess up. My best buddy got some seriously bad burns off of just some mixed gas that had gotten on his pants and his sweatshirt from running a chainsaw. So big fan of having a fire extinguisher around.
Yeah. I've had to use mine twice. Me and Dad were over here working on the carburetors on the old GS rat bike I was getting ready to sell, and she backfired through the carbs, caught on fire. I was able to put it out really quick with that fire extinguisher. But when we first moved into this house, I don't know if I've told this story on the show or not. I may have, but I had it was a Husky 449, which was that oddball BMW redheaded Italian Husky that they made for a little while. But it had this like weird ancillary gas tank that the fuel pump set in, and it had this like bleed off valve on it, and it was leaking. I didn't know this at the time. So this bike's sitting over here in the corner of my garage, and I've got a couple pieces of remnant carpet laying around, just so I'm not walking on the hard, cold concrete floor when I'm working on stuff. And unbeknownst to me, that thing had sat there and just soaked up all that gasoline leaking off that bike. Well, the upper shock bolt was the nut was seized on it, wouldn't go on, wouldn't go off. I had to cut the bolt off. And I'm sitting there cutting the bolt off, and that thing rolls right into that gas-soaked carpet and immediately catches on fire. Catches a workbench on fire that it was under. The shit just started going crazy on fire all over the place. And I'm looking around. I've been in this house for like 7 days, had no fire extinguisher in this garage. So I'm like dragging a bike that's on fire out into the driveway, dragging a piece of carpet that's on fire out in the driveway. I didn't have a water hose hook up in this garage. I had to go in behind the house and drag the water hose around.
Your bladder was empty already?
My bladder was empty. I was this close to just grabbing the cat and a few pieces of family memorabilia and just letting the whole house burn to the ground. So, yes, I would say number one, get a good fire extinguisher if you're going to work on stuff like that.
James, I appreciate you for sharing your entirely fictional story in the event your homeowner's insurance might be tuned into this podcast. So hey, you tell some good fake stories, buddy.
So my ceiling in my garage has like that kind of aluminum coated backer like foam board up top. I can still see places where the fire got to it. It was starting to like buckle and all that stuff. That's all over the place there.
Scary.
Yeah, it is scary. So yeah, fire extinguisher 1000%. I'm sure you got that. The only other thing I would add is, give yourself some creature comforts while you're in here working. Make sure you got a good chair, a good stool to work on stuff. Kick up your phone on a kickstand and upload watch your favorite podcast with your two guys while you're working on stuff. Maybe we can help you out and give you some entertainment. I've got a flat screen TV here in the garage. I love queuing up my phone on there and just playing some music and just jamming out. And I work a lot better whenever I've got
a couple garage beers, and for me, it's typically a set of headphones. Wireless earbuds completely changes the whole dynamic of working on something, man. It makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and if you've got that up there, like we were talking about before, maybe you're watching one of these how-to videos. It's nice to have that right there in front of you as you're working on it, and you can rewind or fast forward through whatever you need to. It makes it really nice. This time of year in our area too, it's nice to have a source of heat. Nobody wants to work in a cold garage. These little, ceramic space heaters, they work great. I've got one right here actually below me right now, kind of keeping the entire garage warm. So, that's always nice as well. Yeah,
I agree. Anything you can do to make yourself more comfortable. I'm a big fan of like milk crates and stuff like that. I gotta have something to sit on. It just so happens that a milk crate's like the perfect height for being like eye level or whatever for, air filter maintenance or, being close to being able to do the engine work or chain maintenance and stuff like that. So that. And if you're going to be kneeling a lot, is having just like one of those cheap foam yoga mats or whatever folded up. Anything's better than your knees being on concrete.
Right over where my workbench is, and where I do a lot of majority of the work on the bike, I've got a bunch of those like puzzle piece together. I can't remember. It might have been Harbor Freight or Busy Beaver or something. It's like a 1-inch thick foam mat that you can kind of snap together. Like a whole thing to do like 50 square feet was like $13 or something.
Yep.
Saves your feet, saves your knees, your ankles. And like you said, if you have to actually get down on it, you're not on the hard floor working on it. So that's something that would be good for guys that maybe have like a gravel or dirt floor in their garage to have to work on as well.
Yep.
Yeah. You think anything else?
Like I said, we go at this for another hour at a minimum, but
I think we could
most of the bases.
One other thing that I would say is nice to have too is just a little air compressor. That's nice for airing up your tires when you're done. Or I don't really work a whole lot with air tools. I'm mostly an electric guy, but there's some stuff that you can run off of air that's nice. Just a little air compressor is nice.
Yeah,
and that probably goes along with other routine house do-it-yourself stuff too. It's nice to have. And I've seen in some of the pictures that we'll show here quickly that a lot of these places you can't just have a dedicated bike shop in your garage. It's got to serve multiple purposes. Yep. So like we were saying earlier, if you have a piece of equipment that covers stuff you're working on the bike and maybe stuff you just have to do in your everyday life as well, that's really nice.
Yep, I agree. That's most everybody's not fortunate enough to have a dedicated space for working on bikes. Yeah. So it ends up being kind of your everything corner to some extent. Your do-it-yourself, your bike maintenance, etc.
Yep. Let's go through some of these that people were uploaded to us there on the post, and I appreciate everybody that was able to do that. We'll go through one at a time here. So first off, and what I like about this is we got all representation of what kind of shop you have to work on your stuff, right? So first off is friend of the program, Greg Blakey. Greg lives, I believe it's on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. And like he said in the post before, he doesn't have a dedicated workshop or garage to work on his stuff. So he's working on it. It looks maybe his daughter's bedroom. I see like little kids.
Look at Mr. Center Stand.
Yeah, I like the center stand. He's got cardboard down, like vinyl floor, so that's easy to clean up if you do spill some stuff on the back of it.
Wife must have been out of town that weekend.
Yeah, maybe. And then this looks like his back patio there, which that's an incredible view. It looks like the if that's the Washington Monument there in the center or something big and tall. But I wouldn't mind that view and a couple tall boys to work on your motorcycle. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, me either.
Next up was JJ Ford. Kind of looks like it's in the basement of his house. Looks like he's got a lot of cool woodworking stuff there. So you got multiple disciplines and hobbies you're working with. It looks like I see some RC cars.
I see some RC rock crawlers. That's cool.
Yeah. So utilizing your space well and being able to use your garage or your basement for multiple things is super nice. Now this picture here, we got to share this stuff. This is Rob and Lisa.
Oh yeah.
And this was their first garage set up there. I think this was at their house up in New Jersey, and you can't really see it, but in the center right there, I think I don't know if it's Rob or Lisa there kind of hiding in the middle of all the bikes. I was cracking up in the middle of that there.
I felt bad for having 4.
Yeah, they take the cake when it comes to having bikes. But this is their new place in Romney. You can see nice open space. They got frames hanging from the ceiling, nice storage to get stuff out of the way. Good wood stove there. That's definitely going to keep that area nice and warm. So this was Rob's area. Again, you got some storage shelves, nice toolboxes, nice lighting, like we were saying earlier.
Bench.
Yeah, good workbench there. See, looks like a 03 and up KX 2-stroke gas tank sitting on the workbench there. And then the last one they had there, more organization, nice lighting, just a nice good area to work on stuff. And you can see how clean the floor is. Nobody wants to work in a dirty place, so that's super nice. Let's see what else we got here. The last one is my dad's new shop that he put together out there at his house. So Dad had a kind of a homemade outbuilding that we were storing all the bikes and stuff in, and he was able to enclose the one end of it and make a nice little workshop there. So there's his 83 XL 600 that is getting a disc brake swing arm and stuff put on there.
Nice.
You can see he's got nice lighting around. Stuff's organized. Got welder. Got a drill press. Got the toolbox there. All kinds of different storage. Nice lights. I mean, that thing will blind you when you're walking in there, man. He's got so many lights. He's old and can't see very well anyway. There's one of the big boy Harbor Freight bike stands there. That thing is super nice. It is heavy, but it is cool to be able to get that thing up and work on it. And he actually modified it a little bit too and put like a scissor jack in the center of it, so you can actually lift the bike up if you want to get the wheels off of while it's on the stand there. So that's nice. Welder, got air compressor, got to have the Honda representation there in the background too. So thanks to everybody for sharing those pictures. Really appreciate that. We got everything you can think of when it comes to motorcycle workshops. Let's go through some of the comments we got here this evening. Again, my lovely phone decides to not work, so you may have to help me out with these. We got hey.
That's from Heather Wilson. The following comment also.
Funny story, Heather. So we went down to West Virginia Adventure Travel Day, and me and Trevor were walking into the rotunda, and I look over, and there's 2 girls that have a little booth set up, and the one girl looked just like you, and they had a sign in the background. I couldn't make out all of it, but it said High Gear. I'm like, Heather's here at Adventure Travel Day. That's cool. We'll have to go over and say hi. So we set up and do all our stuff, and we work our way over there, and it was High Gear Rentals or something from Somersville. And the girl was like your clone, looked just like you. So I thought that was funny. She also says to send her the details for some sponsorship from High Gear Success. We'll definitely do that. Friend of the program. Tusk Scissor Lift is $220 now. I've been eyeing it up. Yeah, the one that I got is a Pit Posse, but they're all made in the same factory. It's the same company making all of those. But yeah, still even at that price, I think it's worth it to get off the ground. Also, Tusk has a pretty solid set of T-handles for like $23, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, definitely need to put that in your arsenal.
You could make a single order to Rocky Mountain ATVMC and get pretty much everything that you would need to get started on working on your bike shipped to your front door for not a lot of money.
Yeah. And if you're in our area with their Kentucky warehouse, it's like 8 hours later you have it as soon as you order Get a torque wrench and a service manual, quarter, 3/8, and half. If you torque the spec, especially if you're a newbie, you'll eventually learn the hand feel for most hardware, sort of critical torques that you need to exact. That's a very good point. The more you work on that, you're going to know when that point of, okay, that's enough. No more. JIS screwdrivers for all the Japanese guys. Yeah,
It's another one from Tyler Vincent. Like I said, I bought a Vessel brand Impact JIS screwdriver because the engine case bolts in those Trail 90s, some of them are threaded like 2 inches into case material. So you get that galvanic corrosion over the span of 50 years. And those manual impact screwdrivers are magic.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's what I said. JIS manual impact driver in all 3 sizes. Yep. You two are so funny. Yeah, we try to be sometimes.
Yeah, that's from my grandma. So
number 1 fan of the show. What else we got here? If you need a special tool, I probably have it to use, tinker around with race bikes just a little bit.
Yeah. Kenny Sinclair.
Yeah. Kenny's definitely got the arsenal if you need to work on stuff.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Kenny. My biggest issue with not having a dedicated shop is the lack of a dedicated work surface. I lose lots of time on every job putting parts and fixtures down on random surfaces in the room, tracking down sockets, parts on the floor, different size of the bike sucks.
Yep. That's from Greg Blakey.
I figured it was, yeah. And like we said, man, just having a fold-up table or something is definitely going to help you out.
Yep.
And great idea. I've actually have 2 of those and never considered it. This is a good one. Never give an actual completion time estimate to your significant other. That's a great piece of advice.
So we have an unspoken rule. It will take at minimum 125% of the projected budget and 200% of the projected time, and probably 200% of the anticipated frustration to get it done.
Do you work for Novellus? Because it sounds like you do.
No, not quite. But the answer is always soon. It'll be done soon, honey.
Yeah, it'll be done soon. Just going to take a few minutes, not too much.
Yep.
I wear knee pads, especially when changing tires, since I use on the floor, fancy cardboard, 2 spoons, and old doll screwdriver.
Yeah,
like you said, man, whatever gets the job done.
Yep.
We use those rubber horse masks from Tractor Supply under the back. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, those are nice and thick. Let's see. There is no space more important than the dirt bike room. Yes. Let's see. I'm in the middle of DC 9th floor kids playroom. You take the cake for best working area, Greg. We like that. I picked up a Harbor Freight Trans jack for a bike stand. Yeah, that'd work great too.
I used one of those for several years.
Yeah. Let's see. I've worked my way up from wrenching in dirt outside to a wood floor shed to a coal car garage or in Carhartts to dedicated a whole garage workspace with temper control just for the bikes. Unfortunately, we're still wrenching on cars outside. Well, in my opinion, the bikes are more important to be working on inside of the car.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for all the comments and the posts there. Let's go on to some industry news. Got a few things on the docket here. First off, Spanish manufacturer Raju has unveiled their new Aventura 500 adventure bike. The engine is a Longsin, which is China, CB500X clone. It's dual overhead cam, liquid cooled. It's parallel twin, 6-speed, got 48 horsepower. The one thing about this bike, though, and its true calling card, is the amount of gas that it will hold. This thing holds 5 gallons, and it has 2 5-gallon tanks. So 10 gallons of gas from this thing gives you the most range of any of the mid-size adventure bikes out there right now. Coming to the dealers here this fall. I know that Leeson's is a Raju dealer here, local for us, probably the closest one. So maybe we'll see.
Maybe we'll get to see one sometime.
Maybe. Honda goes bold, new graphics. They announced that there's no changes to any of their dual sport or adventure offerings other than some new graphics and color options. I mean, what else would we expect from a Japanese manufacturer at this point? I will show. Let me pull this up real quick. I forgot on the Aventura. So there's the Raju. You can see very, very similar to a CB500X. Spoke wheels, inverted forks.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see how well that thing pans out. But one of the one of the main things on the bold new graphics front. You can get the Trail 125 in yellow now.
Bring back the regular old Trail 90s, man. Not these things that weigh almost 300 pounds and make like 8 horsepower. I want something that weighs 200 pounds and makes like 7.
Yeah, that's definitely what we want. I also saw that the 300L, not the Rally, but the full-on dirt model offered gray and orange plastic and graphics on it. The new XR650L had, I think it was a little bit of red, white, and blue this time. Still all the white with the black wheels.
It looks sharp.
Yeah, it does. It does look pretty good. And then finally, last but certainly not least, was we had the first round of the GNCC over the weekend and down at Big Buck. And like we were talking earlier, I'd like to find somebody that wants to go to these races or is already there and just give us a quick rundown and give another segment to the show, because we've got some great local racing here, man. There's Mountain State Hare Scrambles, New East Coast. A lot of the GNCCs are coming here, and let's be honest, a lot of the guys that run stuff with us on Dual Sports, they also race too. Yep. So it's something that's interesting.
Even the local hare scramble stuff's pretty exciting. I know when you were involved in it more heavily, Shiloh and I made it a point to go to whatever local events we could, and I really had a good time.
Yeah, but first round of the series, Big Buck, South Carolina. Super close racing, but when it come down to first and second place, Johnny Jari ended up coming away with the win. Stu Baylor was right on his tail, like literally 2 seconds behind. And then Stu's brother Grant, who I believe they're riding together for Team Kawasaki through Rocky Mountain, was right there to round out the podium. So, super tight, close racing. Awesome to see that to start the season off. The XC2 class, it was interesting. I saw Thad Duvall, who's from Williamson, West Virginia. He has been running the XC1 Pro class most of his career. Actually, kind of took a step down on the 250s and was running the XC2s. It's cool to see him out there. But Angus Rardian come out first place, Liam Draper second, and Grant Davis rounded out third place. And then the XC3 125 class, which I think is just awesome to see out there. Dakota DeVore took first place in that. Jock Walker placed second, and Dustin Simpson came away with third place. But seeing the GNCC dedicate that 2-stroke 125, 150 cc style
screamer class.
Yeah, it's an absolute screamer. It's so cool to watch those guys out there mixing it up. So, really awesome. Let's see. Last but certainly not least, we got a little bit of Had to Layer Down, and I think I sent this clip to you there the other day. So these are a different type of. What I like about Had to Layer Down is you never know what type of clibbins you're going to encounter, and this was a clibbins that was brought up during the kids movie The Incredibles. Why you shouldn't have this. So we'll just play this and we'll talk about it here. So hang on one second.
Did you run into some clibbins? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
Next Had to Lay Her Down comes from Blair McMahon 65, and this was definitely an interesting one. You got to watch out for Cape clibbins. Cape, C-A-P-E, Cape clibbins. So, I don't know if any of you have watched that old kids show, The Incredibles, but
no capes.
Edna Mode, no capes, no capes. So
I don't know what it is about kids bikes, man. I guess it's because people think they're toys, but I've seen so many videos of people just getting crippled on those things. Wiping out at 40 miles an hour is wiping out at 40 miles an hour no matter what you're on.
Listen, I got hurt the most I ever had on a little bike. So we went to it was actually at Big Buck GNCC years ago. I was racing the 125 schoolboy class, and my bike blew up before I could get out on the line. And my sister had a KX 100 that she'd raced in the youth class. And you were allowed to race the 100cc bikes on there. So I'm like, it's fine. I'll get out here on this thing. I'm not going to do very well, but I'm going to get some points. Maybe I don't get last. It's something. and got out on that thing and blew my ACL, PCL, MCL out. So you got to watch the little bikes, man. They will absolutely thrash you. So, all right, man. I see we got a couple more late blooming comments here. So let's pull this up here. How many bolts did you break off on that Samurai lift job? I think I broke 2 of the steering knuckle studs, so that was fun getting that out. Dan rolling around with a fish tank full of gas. Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember seeing a picture of the old. It was an XR 650R like I used to have, and it was like a Baja design or Baja race bike, and it had gas tanks all over it. Every bit of plastic on the thing was a gas tank, and they were calling that the XR Valdez. So that's probably what the Raju would be. Mine certainly not his best clippings ever, Cape clippings. So I don't want to see anybody out there at the 304 detour with capes on. We have to keep you.
It's not a cape, James. It's a cloak.
It's a cloak.
A cloak.
It's a way of life. Leave me alone. All right, y'all. We appreciate you tuning in as always tonight, and we'll catch you next Tuesday. I think we're going to do we'll do a deep dive into clubs and organizations.
Yep.
So excited about that one. So Trevor, thanks as always, buddy. And those at home, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.